Hello friends, my name is Brennan Kelly and welcome to my third installment of my weekly video lecture series on big data. This week I'm going to be talking a little bit about mining sentiment analysis. So first I'm going to ask the question, what is sentiment analysis? If you're an average English speaker, you should be able to piece together sentiment and analysis to figure out that sentiment analysis is trying to figure out what is the opinion of something? What do I think about this? What do you think about that? What do we think about something? It could be a person, place, thing, product, idea, whatever. So the idea of mining a sentiment analysis to try to figure out the popular opinion of a specific product or a specific person or a specific anything. And the reason this is really popular is because popular opinion tends to be very powerful. And if you want proof of that, you can watch Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. In the show, they're given 3 lifelines, and one of the lifelines is ask the audience, and the audience is this large group of multifaceted people who have a variety of knowledge on various issues. What tends to happen is anytime that lifeline is used, the audience is overwhelmingly correct, usually. So when we're trying to find out popular opinion on something, it's obviously important because it can have a huge impact on how that thing is perceived and how it survives in the world. An example of what sentiment analysis might look like would be I'm having a conversation with somebody and I say, I really like Oreos. And so you take that phrase, that sentence, and imagine your computer trying to understand it. You have to try to piece together what that phrase means. So we look at, I mean, that one's really simple. We can break it down into a very simple English sentence where the subject of the sentence is Oreos, and the sentiment of it is that I like it. And so then a computer might find that sentiment, find that word like as what I do to Oreos, and label that as good. And then there's a variety of other algorithms to score it based on weight. For instance, like if I said I like Oreos versus I really like Oreos, something, those two, well, they might mean the same thing. They, the act of putting really in there might score higher on a sentiment analysis algorithm. So the purpose of doing that is to try to understand what people's opinions are. But if you do that for that sentence alone, then all you really understand is that I like Oreos. That's not too useful. I mean, we can't say it's useless, but it's just a drop of water in the ocean. What we want to try to do is understand the temperature of the ocean. So to do that, we take a massive amount of opinion-based data that can come from a variety of sources. The most popular nowadays being Twitter, because Twitter is very easy to look at, to take live streaming data, and also the fact that Twitter updates are limited to 140 characters or less, which means that it's not an absurd amount of text that you have to read through to get the sentiment of something. Sentiment analysis is often used to try to create a summary of online articles, but if these articles are 3 pages long, then there's a lot of sentiment there that's expressed, and there's a lot of ambiguity, especially because these algorithms aren't perfect. You can say something that has some ambiguity and it might not make a lot of sense. For instance, you could say like the weather in Seattle when I visited was dreary and miserable, and I loved it. That doesn't really make sense to a computer. You could be the type of person who really likes rainy, cloudy weather, but even with that last part, but I loved it, there's still the confliction of dreary and miserable. These are keywords that are obviously not good. But then when you combine it with I love it, a sophisticated algorithm might pick that up. In any case, all right, so when we're talking about data mining, we have an enormous amount of data, probably coming from something like Twitter, and we have to try to get the opinion of a specific product. So we'll talk about Oreos again. So let's look up the keyword Oreo on Twitter, and we'll get an enormous amount of tweets about Oreos. And my assumption is that a vast majority of them are either going to be discardable or they'll be kind of ambiguous or maybe not make a lot of sense, and that's not the point. We can probably get rid of those, especially with such a large data set. What we'll be left with is a large subset of those tweets about Oreos that can be mined for an opinion, that have some sort of sentiment that's easy or at least possible to pick out. So then we apply some algorithms to all of this data, and then we can do all sorts of data mining techniques to find out of the set of tweets that we thought that Oreo was approved of. What is the most common keyword? Do people that really like Oreos also mention dunking milk? You know, in that case, should Oreos be sold with milk all the time? And then so that was the whole point of mining sentiment analysis. You find out generally good sentiment and use that information to try to do things, to try to do things more that people like. You know, it's like training a dog. It's positive reinforcement. You hear something really good about yourself from not just one voice, but from millions or hundreds of thousands of voices. Then you know it's something that really is good, and you want to either highlight or make better or something like that. As for the bad stuff, negative sentiment analysis could be like, I'm tired of dry cookies in my Oreos. They're not good. In which case Oreo can try to change the way they make the cookie part of their Oreos, or whatever. That's just an example. But the whole point of mining sentiment analysis is instead of having somebody that's hired to look through your company's Facebook page and try to get a gauge of a representation of what people are thinking, you just take all of that data from a specific amount of time. And the reason Twitter is really good is because there's an extreme amount of tweets every single day. In the course of the almost 7 minutes I've been talking, there's been hundreds of thousands of tweets that have happened, and a lot of them have expressed an opinion about something or someone. So there's value to finding out the collective voice of that opinion. And before I wrap things up, I wanted to express one example of a company that really took advantage of this, and it was Jell-O. And what Jell-O did is they realized pretty early on that they could look at the Twitter sphere and kind of mine it for information about Jell-O. And what they did is they scored it, and every time the sentiment on a scale of 0 to 100, where 0 is really good and 0 is really bad and 100 is really good, anytime the sentiment dropped below 50%, Jell-O would release coupons to anybody on Twitter that had mentioned them, or maybe they would just do a batch release of coupons where anybody that saw the Jell-O Twitter page could get one. In any case, every time they did that, the Jell-O sentiment would go up. And that could be, we could kind of say that that's cheating the system a little bit, but it's really not. Like, if you're just talking about like trying to change people's opinions of you as a brand, as an image, as a product, as a person, that's a really ingenious idea. So that concludes my discussion about mining sentiment analysis. Stay tuned next week. Goodbye.